Stavakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharmasvarupine Avadara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namah. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityormamritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to remove all our ignorance, to lead us onwards in our spiritual journey. We shall pray to the Divine Master to conquer fear, to conquer death. Sri Ramakrishna, in the course of his talks with his disciples, said, one attains everything when he discovers his true self in himself. The object of sadhana is to realize that. That also is the purpose of assuming a human body. One needs the clay mold as long as the gold image has not been cast. God is not only inside us, He is both inside and outside. These are the instructions given by Sri Ramakrishna. He pinpoints our goal in life. We should discover our true self. Once you discover your true self, then you attain everything. It's a very significant teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. Now, how to discover our true self? It is said gold is there in such a place. But then, how to get into that place? That's the next step. If you want gold, you must go there. Take steps how to reach the place. So here Sri Ramakrishna is telling us, discover your true self. You will get everything. Now, how to discover it? That's the question now. Well, one thing is very understandable. As long as we live, we can't but work. We should meditate steadily besides engaging ourselves in work. Work we do spontaneously. Mind naturally runs after doing the work. You don't have to give any suggestion, let me do some work. Your very nature pushes you to do work. But meditation, of course, you have to try a bit. Otherwise, mind does not generally inclined towards meditation. Both are important. We have to use both work and meditation to discover our true self. So, what's the way? It means we should integrate work and meditation in order to discover the true self. Now let us go point by point to understand more clearly so that there is no conflict between work and meditation. On the other hand, how they are both useful in taking us towards our true self. What is work and what is meditation? Work seems to be an outward movement, leading us away from God into the world and its problems. I am referring to ordinary type of work where we are all engaged. Then what is meditation? It is apparently an inward movement towards divinity and peace. One is outward movement, another is inward movement. One is movement towards the world, another is movement towards inner self. Secondly, shouldering responsibilities, dealing with people, planning about future and other problems which are unavoidable in work, cause distraction at the time of meditation. It's not without reason you are being distracted. Because your mind was engaged in outward activities, when you sit for meditation, the effect of those activities distracts us. The third difficulty is the inability to maintain in the course of one's work the peace and recollectedness acquired during meditation. When you are sitting consciously to think of the divine name, you somehow try to set up an atmosphere in your heart. Try to be in tune with the spiritual ideas. And so long as you are in that process of meditation, you enjoy certain amount of peace, but as soon as you come out of meditation, once you are again engaged in activities, you are not able to maintain that peaceful attitude. Modern socio-economic conditions do not allow most spiritual aspirants to spend long hours in contemplation. Even among those who have the means and leisure, most people must need engage themselves in some work to prevent themselves from going insane. So work is a boon. Work is a blessing. The point is, you have to do the work in a proper way with proper attitude. Moreover, the benefits of an hour or two of daily meditation are found to be neutralized by the other activities of the day. So, the conflict between meditation and work should be resolved so that our spiritual progress will not be slow. We bring that conflict. When it comes to the practice, we bring the conflict between meditation and work. Thereby, we neither do meditation nor work. No. We should find out the method of integrating both meditation and work. So the importance of integration of work into meditative life is significant. Now, work itself transforms consciousness as much as meditation does, though its effects are less obvious. When we speak of the results of our work, we usually mean only the changes produced in the objective world by our work. How we influenced this person or that, how much money we got, and so on. We rarely think of the effect produced in our consciousness by our work. And yet, without our notice, everything that we do slowly changes our attitudes, changes our ideas, changes our emotions, our power of concentration, and the quality and direction of awareness. All these are affected. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if a person served another for 12 years, he would acquire that man's character. Work changes the worker as much as it does the external world. We are so much carried away by our thoughts, by our emotions, that we fail to notice the subtle changes that work brings about in us. Spiritual aspirants often exaggerate the importance of meditation and ignore the power inherent in work to transform human consciousness. Another factor which makes work important is that it is the only of relating ourselves to the world in a realistic way. It is the only way of relating ourselves to the world in a realistic way. We may have lofty ideals and dreams, but what determines our relationship with others is our work. How we perform the work. It is a type of work that a man does that determines his place in society. Society judges us by our work. And it is not possible to live in harmony with others if we don't do our work properly. Lastly, there is in all people an inherent creative urge. We not only want to experience and accept, but also want to express and create. We want to give to others what we have gained. We want to share with others our own individual life. It is through work that the creative urge finds expression. When we are able to do the right type of work that allows the full expression of the creative urge, life energy flows freely through us. Our life then appears to be purposeful, meaningful, joyful. If we do the wrong type of work or do the right type of work in a wrong way or do not work at all, the creative urge gets dammed up within. Our life will then become empty and meaningless. So how very important it is, we should pay proper attention to the performance of our work. All these points clearly show the importance of harmonizing work and meditation in spiritual life. You have to work with a thorough understanding. Then only it helps you in your spiritual aspiration. The next question is how to do it. To find an answer, we must first of all understand how meditation and work are related to each other, because we want to harmonize them. So what is the relationship between meditation and work? It's a very important subject. All these things are to be clearly understood. Then only you feel not dejected in your spiritual journey. Otherwise, every now and then you feel depressive attitude. Clear up all the debris in the mind. Then you feel you are wonderful. The Advaitic teachers, the teachers who preach non-dualism, they have grouped both meditation and ritualistic work together as two different forms of karma, activity. Both are characterized by action, by agency, and by result. Kriya, Karaka, Phal. And imply subject-object dualism. They are thus different from jnana, knowledge, which, being non-dual in its true nature, is free from such distinctions. It's beyond this. Since everything other than jnana is classified as ajnan, ignorance. Work and meditation are both products of ignorance and cannot lead directly to liberation. Their function is chiefly negative in the form of purification of mind and removal of obstacles. That's all they do. That is the view of the Advaitic teachers. On the other hand, the teachers of bhakti, what do they say? They regard meditation and work as essentially different disciplines. Ramanujacharya, the great exponent of qualified monism, identifies meditation with bhakti, which itself is a special kind of knowledge of God in the form of unbroken memory. Smriti santana rupam darshana samanakaram dhyanopasanadi shabdavachyam. Is a commentary on the Gita verse. The definitions of bhakti given by other teachers indicate that according to them also, bhakti is a higher type of meditation which is quite different from karma. They also hold that karma in itself is not a direct means to liberation, but becomes an indirect means when it is done as worship of God. To know the true relation between meditation and work, it is necessary to understand some of the fundamental psychological processes involved in both work and meditation. Now, what is karma? What is karma yoga? All these different points I am touching briefly so that we can come to the final conclusion, harmonizing both meditation and karma in order to discover our true self by which we get everything. Among the four main yogas, the most misunderstood and misused is karma yoga. One type of misunderstanding is to confuse it with mere karma or work. To work like a bullock or to work in any way one likes is not karma yoga. Engaging yourself in some activity cannot necessarily become karma yoga. The work that most people do is nothing but a semi-conscious, passion-driven, aimless rat race for name and fame and sense pleasures. And to call it karma yoga is an insult to the great teachers of yoga. The goal of karma yoga is not worldly success. It is primarily a spiritual discipline which aims at liberation. Another misunderstanding is to think that karma yoga could be undertaken by anyone without any prior preparation, without any qualification. Karma yoga is work done with self-awareness, detachment of will, and God orientation. It differs from other yogas only in its outer form, and the internal psychological processes involved in it are not much different from those in other yogas. It is impossible to practice karma yoga without attaining a certain degree of purity of mind, inner awakening, and training. Everything requires training. Everything requires discipline. It is not a simple and easy path. Nor is karma yoga a straight path. Like all other yogas, karma yoga also passes through several stages. The first is the stage of phalasankalpa tyaga. First stage. What is that? The aspirant tries to give up attachment to the result of his actions. That is the first stage. When he is established in that stage, he comes to the second stage, karma sankalpa tyaga. Giving up attachment to work. It means the aspirant neither seeks nor avoids more work. He does all the work that has fallen to his lot, but he does not attempt to determine the course of the work. He just does it. So the first one is phalasankalpa tyaga. The second one is karma sankalpa tyaga. Next comes the stage of kartrutva sankalpa tyaga. Kartrutva sankalpa tyaga. That is giving up the feeling of being the agent or doer. He doesn't give up I consciousness, for without it, it is impossible to do any work except some automatic mechanical movements of the body. But knowing that Prakriti, impelled by God, does all work, he ceases to regard himself as a moral agent. Na karta, na bhokta. He reaches that state. So, the karma yogi works incessantly, gives up only sankalpa, that is intentionality or willing, but not the work. He detaches his will progressively from the external world, from his body and from his ego. The aim of karma yoga is not to change the world, but to change oneself. The three stages mentioned above only represent the progressive transformation of the karma yogi's consciousness. It is this interior transformation that turns ordinary work into a yoga. Karma yoga is not doing some extraordinary work. Anyway, these are some of the important points which we should know before going further into the subject. In my next class, I will further speak about the effects of karma. We should know all these facts We should know because we are aiming to discover our true self. So it is important. Through work, through meditation, through the combination of these two, we should be able to discover your true self, by which you get everything, you lack nothing, you get supreme peace and joy. The aim of page 522, starting from the beginning, I'm reading from the previous para. The aim of prayer, of spiritual discipline, of chanting the name and glories of God, is to realize that for that alone a devotee loves God. These youngsters are on a lower level. They haven't yet reached a high spiritual state. They are following the path of bhakti. Please don't tell them such things as I am he. Like the mother bird brooding over her chicks, Sri Ramakrishna was alert to protect his devotees. Adhar and Niranjan went out on the porch to take refreshments. Presently, they returned to the room. Adhar smilingly said, We talked about so many things. Pointing to M, he said, but he did not utter a word. Master said, in Keshav's organization, there was a young man with 4 university degrees. He laughed when he saw people arguing with me. He said, to argue with him? How silly. I saw him again later on at one of Keshav's meetings. But then he didn't have the same bright complexion. Sri Ramakrishna sat on the floor for his supper. It was a light meal of a little farina pudding and 1 or 2 luchis that had been offered to the Kali temple. Offered in the Kali temple. M and Latu were in the room. The devotees had brought various sweets for Master. He touched a sandesh and asked Latu, who is the rascal that brought this? He took it out of the cup and left it on the ground. He said to Latu and Yam, I know all about him. He is immoral. Latu, shall I give you this sweet? Master said, Kishori brought it. Latu, will it suit you? Master smilingly said, yes. M had received an English education. Sri Ramakrishna said to him, it is not possible for me to eat things offered by anyone and everyone. Do you believe this? Master Maharshi said, gradually I shall have to believe all these things. Master said, yes, that is so. After finishing the meal, Sri Ramakrishna washed his mouth. He said to M, then will you give the rupee to Naran? Yes, said M. Certainly I will. The moon rose in the clear autumn sky and was reflected in the river. It was ebb tide in the Ganges and the river flowed south toward the sea. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his room with Narendra, Bhavanath, the Mukherjee brothers and other devotees. Rakhal was staying with Balaram at Vrindavan and was laid up with an attack of fever. Narendra was preparing himself for his coming law examination. About 11 o'clock, Gyan Babu arrived. He was a government official and had received 4 university degrees. Master, at the sight of Gyan Babu, said, well, this sudden awakening of knowledge, Jnana means knowledge. Gyan smilingly said, you must admit, sir, that one sees the awakening of knowledge as a result of very good fortune. Master said smilingly, you are Jnana. You are Gyan. Then why should you have Agyan, ignorance? Oh, I understand. Where there is knowledge, there is also ignorance. The sage Vasishtha was endowed with great knowledge, and still he wept at the death of his sons. Therefore I ask you to go beyond both knowledge and ignorance. The thorn of ignorance has pierced the sole of a man's foot. He needs the thorn of knowledge to take it out. Afterwards he throws away both thorns. The Jnani says, this world is a framework of illusion. But he who is beyond both knowledge and ignorance describes it as a mansion of mirth. He sees that it is God himself who has become the universe, all living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. A man can live in the world after attaining God, then he can lead the life of a detachment. In the country I have seen the women of the carpenter families making flattened rice with a husking machine. With one hand, one of them turns the paddy in the hole, and with the other she holds a nursing child. At the same time she talks with the buyer. She says to him, you owe me 2 annas. Pay it before you go. But 75% of the woman's mind is on her hand, lest it should be crushed by the pestle of the husking machine. A man should do his worldly duties with only 25% of his mind, devoting the rest to God. But we are doing the reverse. Not even 25% we are giving to God. Sri Ramakrishna is telling, do your duties with only 25% of your mind. The remaining 75% of the mind should be given to God. Anyway, referring to Pandit Shashadhar, the master said to the devotees, I found him monotonous, engaged in the dry discussion of philosophy. He alone, who after reaching the Nitya, the Absolute, can dwell in the Leela, the relative, and again climb from the Leela to the Nitya, has ripe knowledge and devotion. Sages like Narad cherish love of God after attaining the knowledge of Brahman. This is called Vijnan. Mere dry knowledge is like an ordinary rocket. It bursts into a few sparks and then dies out. But knowledge of sages like Narad and Shukdev is like a good rocket. For a while it showers balls of different colors, and then it stops again, and then it stops. Again it throws out new balls, and again it stops. And thus it goes on. Those sages had prema for God. Prema is a rope by which one can reach Sachidananda. The master finished his midday meal and rested a few minutes. Bhavanath M., the Mukherjee brothers, Hazra, and several other devotees sat down under the bakul tree and began to converse. The master stopped there a while on his way to the pine grove. Hazra said to the younger Gopal, please prepare a smoke for him, meaning the master. Master said smilingly, why don't you admit that you want it? Or laugh. Mukherjee said to Hazra, you must have learnt much wisdom from him, meaning the master. Master said smilingly, no, he has been wise like this from his boyhood. Or laugh. Presently Sri Ramakrishna returned from the pine grove. The devotees noticed that he was in an ecstatic mood and was reeling like a drunkard. After reaching his room, he regained the normal state. Many devotees gathered in the room. Among them was a newcomer, a sadhaka from Konnagar, who looked over 50 years of age and seemed to have great vanity of scholarship. We shall stop here. Any questions? So when you have to practice karma yoga, you have to practice 3 types of tyaga. Phala sankalpa tyaga, giving up attachment to the results of the actions. Karma sankalpa tyaga, giving up attachment to work. But at the same time, performing zealously whatever the work that comes to him. The third stage is kartrutva sankalpa tyaga, giving up the feeling of being the agent or doer. So, when a person is matured in all these 3 stages, he is said to be a karma yogin. Nothing bothers him. He feels everything is done by the supreme will of God. He just carries on the duties in that spirit. Carries them well, performs them well, without aspiring any results. Just for the love of God, he does work. So in that way, he trains himself. He doesn't become egoistic or boastful. He tries to purify himself thoroughly from all bad samskaras. So karma yoga clears the way Anyway, we shall take up this matter again in the next class. Some more points are there to be studied.